Chapter 1475. It's a pity that the door of the monument has been sealed, so we have no way to go in. We can only wait here. Bai Junyu's expression was a bit helpless. If they knew the safety of Hongzhuang, it would not be a big deal for them to continue to wait here. The important thing was that they did not know the current situation of Hongzhuang, so they had no confidence in waiting. Hongzhuang will be fine. Gong Shaoqing said slowly, his dark and cold eyes filled with a firm light. Along the way, they had experienced a lot of things. Hongzhuang was very good, whether it was strength or luck. He believed that Hongzhuang would be blessed by the heavens and would not have an accident. Although Gong Shaoqing's words were full of strength, the worry in Xia Jiqing's heart still could not completely dissipate. Because no one knew what the master of the monument was thinking. Thinking of the shocking scene when they first entered the monument, they had no confidence in their hearts. Just as everyone was waiting anxiously, the door of the monument suddenly opened, and a white figure appeared in everyone's line of sight. Looking at the appearance of this figure, everyone's face could not help but be filled with surprise. Boss! Xia Jiqing immediately stood up from the ground, her pretty face full of surprise, and quickly greeted Bailey Hongzhuang. The speed of Mo Yunjue and the others was not slow. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang appear, they all greeted her, and their hearts that had been hanging were finally put down at this moment. Boss, you finally came out. We were worried to death about you. Xia Jiqing excitedly hugged Bailey Hongzhuang. Her mood could be described as extremely complicated. Worry, anxiety, nervousness, and this moment of ecstasy merged together. She almost did not know what to say. The trip to the ruins this time was really frightening. First, when the boss fought with Han Xiling, she was worried that the boss would fall. Later, when the boss desperately climbed to the 11th floor, she was worried that the boss would not be able to come out. It was not until now that her heart was completely at ease. Hongzhuang, how do you feel? Have you recovered from your injuries? Did the master of the ruins make things difficult for you? Are there any hidden dangers in your body? Without waiting for Bailey Hongzhuang to speak, everyone's concern was like a bomb that was constantly thrown at her. For a moment, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't know which question to answer. However, looking at the concern on everyone's faces, Bailey Hongzhuang's face was also filled with a warm smile. At least she still had a group of teammates who cared about her. During this time in the ruins, she was most worried about Xia Jiqing and the others. Now that she saw them again, she only felt that it was really too good. I'm fine. There's no problem at all. Don't worry, Bailey Hongzhuang said with a smile. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, no one believed her. Instead, they looked at Bailey Hongzhuang suspiciously. After seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang's ruddy face was not sickly at all, everyone was relieved. We're relieved that you're fine. During this time, we were scared to death. Yuan Xiaoman patted her chest. Although the time she spent with the boss was not too long, she had already regarded the boss as a very close person. If the boss could not come out of the monument this time, the scene would be unimaginable. Chapter 1476. How long have I been in the ruins? Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but look at the crowd. Her phoenix eyes were filled with faint doubt. In fact, in her perception, she didn't seem to have stayed in the ruins for long because she was in a coma most of the time. However, she knew that this period of time was definitely not short. This was because the injuries on her body alone would take a long time to heal. Previously, she had forcibly climbed through the 99th floor and climbed up to the 100th floor. She was already seriously injured, and her internal organs were severely injured. Even with her superb medical skills, she inevitably felt that it was tricky to deal with such an injury. It was definitely not a simple matter to deal with it. After that, her injuries recovered, but she fainted again when she merged with the colorful divine pearl. She couldn't determine how long she was in a coma. As for the three beasts, they had been staying in the chaos ring. There was no day or night in the chaos ring, so they didn't know how long had passed. They only felt that it was quite a long time. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's puzzled look, everyone felt helpless. It seemed that Hongzhuang really didn't know the time outside. "Boss, we have been in the ruins for 3 months before, and you have been in there for 3 months. Half a year has passed," Xia Jiqing said. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes changed a bit, and she couldn't help but say, "It's only been 3 months. Judging from the severity of her injuries, it would be difficult to heal in 3 months." She didn't expect that she would completely recover in 3 months. It seemed that this was all due to her master's means, otherwise she didn't know how much time it would take. She participated in the assessment competition this time, and the results were also extremely important to her. After all, she wanted to become a cultivator of Tiangang's sect, so the results were naturally extremely important. If the results were not good, then she wouldn't be able to enter Tiangang's sect. Fortunately, there was still time to earn points. Xia Jiqing and others, who originally felt that this time was very long, heard Bailey Hongzhuang sigh that it was only 3 months, and their faces showed an incredible look. "Boss, it's been half a year since we entered the ruins. Do you still think that time is short?" Xia Jiqing looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in disbelief. Boss' concept of time was really different. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly when she saw the puzzled look on everyone's face. "No, it's just that I feel like I've been in the ruins for a long time. The time I've spent here is shorter than I thought." Bailey Hongzhuang looked around and saw that there were no other cultivators around except for their team of cultivators. She immediately understood what was going on. The other cultivators have already gone to the center of the small world. "Let's go too," Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. They had stayed here for 3 months and had already been delayed long enough. If they did not set off now, they would fall behind too much. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone nodded. "As long as you're okay with it, we're all okay with it." The cultivators from the Tiangang dynasty all had joyful expressions on their faces. They had been waiting here for a long time and had been looking forward to setting off soon. Chapter 1477. As they walked, Bailey Hongzhuang walked to Mo Yunjue's side, her eyes filled with concern. "Have you fully recovered from your injuries?" She clearly remembered that when she had climbed up to the 99th level, Mo Yunjue had also suffered serious injuries in order to pull her down. Actually, at that time, she had heard Mo Yunjue's words and wanted to stop Mo Yunjue from walking up. However, at that time, she had already lost all her strength under the immense pressure and could only fight with her life on the line. If she had continued to fight, she might have had a chance to succeed. However, if she had turned back just like that, she would have had no chance at all. Hence, under such circumstances, she could only fight with all her might to move forward. She was very touched that Mo Yunjue had disregarded his own safety to save her in such a dangerous situation. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words of concern and guilt, Mo Yunjue smiled faintly. "Don't worry, I'm completely fine now. For someone like me, who is used to getting injured, I recover very quickly." Mo Yunjue's attitude was carefree and relaxed. "I didn't expect you to risk your life so much. That was really out of my expectations." He had always known that Bailey Hongzhuang was different from ordinary girls. However, he did not expect that under such terrifying pressure, Bailey Hongzhuang would risk her bones breaking to charge forward. This kind of fighting spirit was really too amazing. It seems that Bailey Hongzhuang was the youngest, but her strength was so high that it was inseparable from her fighting spirit. "Looks like I'll have to give you a nickname, the Desperate 13th Sister." Seeing Mo Yunjue joking so calmly, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a slight smile. "Seeing that you're still in the mood to joke, your injuries should be fine." Mo Yunjue's gaze was fixed on Bailey Hongzhuang. Although Bailey Hongzhuang's strength could not be detected by other cultivators, he had a faint feeling. Bailey Hongzhuang's strength was much stronger than before. Looks like you've gained quite a lot from the ruins this time. Mo Yinjue slowly said. As a cultivator, his senses were very sensitive. From Bailey Hongzhuang's state, he could tell that Bailey Hongzhuang must have obtained the final inheritance. This was because Bailey Hongzhuang's spirit was different from before. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly and said, I have indeed gained quite a lot. My strength has increased. As for the exact details of the inheritance, Bailey Hongzhuang did not say. Even though she knew very well that everything that had happened before was real, no one would believe her even if she told them. She had become the successor of a sect after obtaining the inheritance of the ruins. No normal person would believe this kind of thing. Everyone knew how difficult it was to become the successor of a sect. Either one's elders were the sect master, or one's strength was outstanding enough and had been nurtured by the sect since young, like Di Beichen. In her case, it was almost impossible for her to have come out of nowhere. Even though all of this had happened to her, she still could not be sure. The everlasting sect was her master's blood and sweat. Whether or not her master was willing to hand over the everlasting sect to her was her master's choice. She would not say too much now. Chapter 1478. The wise Mo Yinjue did not ask again after hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's answer. What kind of inheritance a cultivator obtained was their own business. Any cultivator would have their own trump cards, which would not be exposed in front of other cultivators. As long as he knew that Bailey Hongzhuang had really obtained the inheritance, he was relieved. This at least proved that Bailey Hongzhuang had obtained anything from the owner of the monument, and there were no other problems. The cultivators of the Tiangang dynasty shuttled through the forest. Compared to the caution they had when walking in the forest before, now with the improvement of everyone's strength, it had become much easier to deal with the monsters. Even if they had only cultivated for 3 months on the heaven stairway, for them, it was no different from cultivating for more than 2 years in the outside world. Therefore, their strength had improved greatly. Although they did not obtain the final inheritance of the monument, the improvement of their cultivation was already a gift from the owner of the monument. Bailey Hongzhuang's group easily passed through the forest and lived in the city at night. Because they started too late, the other cultivators had far surpassed them, so when Bailey Hongzhuang and others entered the city, they found that there was only one team of cultivators in this huge city. My God, the situation when we first came to the small world happened again. Xia Jiqing looked at the empty city, and her face was full of deep amazement. This scene was really familiar. The people who were quite emotional couldn't help but laugh after hearing Xia Jiqing's words. Compared to the situation where they had to compete with the cultivators for a place to stay, the empty situation now was undoubtedly more comfortable. Just find a house to stay in, we will soon catch up with those cultivators. Gong Shaoqing said slowly. Hearing this, everyone nodded. In this situation, they didn't have to worry about some cultivators who didn't have eyes to look for trouble, and they could relax a lot. Bailey Hongzhuang casually found a house and went in. During this time, she had been in a coma. Today, after moving around, she felt refreshed. After being in a coma for so many days, she didn't want to continue to rest. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang was ready to start cultivating. Since the integration of the colorful pearl in her body, her cultivation had rapidly improved a lot. Now she needed some time to get used to the improvement of her strength. Although the sudden improvement of strength was a good thing, it would also have a certain impact on the foundation. Therefore, she needed time to stabilize her cultivation. Only then would she be able to develop better with Dolly. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was preparing to cultivate, her door was knocked. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyebrows raised slightly, not knowing who was looking for her. As soon as she opened the door, Bailey saw Xia Jiqing's bright smile. "Boss, it's me." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly, "Come in." Xia Jiqing followed Bailey Hongzhuang into the house, her eyes immediately fixed on Baisher's body. She suddenly walked to Baisher's side, her pretty face showing a hint of surprise. Boss, Baisher's body has also become bigger after the breakthrough. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Yes, it has become bigger than before. It will gradually grow bigger in the future. Chapter 1479. Baisher enjoyed Xia Jiqing's touch. Xia Jiqing was his master's good sister, so he was very familiar with her. Therefore, he did not reject Xia Jiqing at all. Xia Jiqing stroked Baisher's soft hair. As Baisher's strength increased, his hair became softer and brighter. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes also fell on Baisher's body, and there was a bit of expectation in her clear eyes. She was also curious about what kind of realm Baisher, as a beast king, could grow to. I haven't seen Baisher for a while, and I really miss him. Xia Jiqing held Baisher in her arms. This little guy had grown up now, and if he grew up in the future, he would not be suitable to be held. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and sat beside Xia Jiqing. Did anything happen when you were waiting outside the monument? After leaving the monument, many cultivators were unwilling to leave the heaven stairway and wanted to go in. Therefore, they have a deep resentment towards you, boss. Xia Jiqing chuckled. If boss had not reached the 100th floor, the other cultivators would still be cultivating on the heaven stairway. Therefore, everyone's emotions were understandable. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and did not speak. She had already learned this from her master. Even if she did not climb to the 100th floor, as time passed, the heaven stairway would disappear. Speaking of which, if she had reached the 100th floor a few days later, then this inheritance would not have been hers. Perhaps all of this was destined, and everything seemed too coincidental. Master Mo was injured at that time, so Gong Shaoqing and Dong Fangyu helped him to the city to recuperate. By the way, the cultivators of the Qinrun dynasty and the Wanyun dynasty also stayed to help us, but they left after we met up. Because at first, many cultivators were dissatisfied with leaving like this, so they have been waiting for you to come out, wanting to take away the inheritance you had obtained. However, as time went on, they gradually left. So that's how it is. Bailey Hongzhuang's exquisite face was filled with understanding. She couldn't help but think of Pan Zimo and Dong Hongyun. Speaking of which, the way they knew each other was also strange. Most importantly, the cultivators from the Qinrun dynasty and the Wanyun dynasty could come and help them. This was very interesting. By the way, boss, I came here today to give you something. Xia Jiqing remembered the most important thing that she came to find her boss for and immediately said. What is it? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. The next moment, Xia Jiqing took out a zither from her qianquan bag and handed it to Bailey Hongzhuang. Boss, this is for you. Looking at the zither that suddenly appeared in front of her, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with surprise. Zither? Xia Jiqing nodded slightly. Didn't we successfully enter the stone room before? I got this zither in the stone room. I don't know how to play the zither. I remember that the skills boss learned in the ruins last time were zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. I think this zither is more useful for you. Although she did not know anything about zither, she could see that this zither should not be simple. Bailey Hongzhuang knew that this zither was not simple after learning that it was obtained from the stone room. Just like the pill furnace she got, it was not ordinary. Chapter 1480. As a zither player, if she wanted to use the zither to reach a certain level of power, the requirements for the zither were very high. It was not a zither that was used to listen to music, but a weapon. However, she had also paid attention to it these days, but she had never seen such a weapon. Therefore, although she had mastered the zither skill, she had never used it. She did not expect Xia Jiqing to take out a zither today, which was beyond her expectations. Bailey Hongzhuang carefully looked at the zither in Xia Jiqing's hand. This zither was engraved with 3 small words, nine-tailed zither. The shape of the nine-tailed zither was very beautiful, and the pattern was very delicate. At a glance, it was very delicate. After a careful perception, Bailey Hongzhuang had already understood that this nine-tailed zither was a weapon, not a zither that was used to play music. Such a zither was too rare, she did not expect to see it in the ruins. Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but think of the pill furnace and the colorful pearl that she had obtained. She had obtained a lot of treasures in the ruins this time. Xia Jiqing saw that Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes had been fixed on the zither, but she did not speak. Her eyes could not help but be filled with doubts. "Boss, you don't like this zither?" Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang recovered from her thoughts and quickly said, "No, I like it very much, but I have not found a suitable zither. I did not expect to see it today. It is really a surprise." Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang was so satisfied, Xia Jiqing's face was also full of smiles. "Boss, as long as you like it, I am happy." Xia Jiqing immediately put the nine-tailed zither in the hands of Bailey Hongzhuang. When she got the zither, she wanted to give it to her boss, but the situation was too rushed, so she planned to give it to her after she came back. Unexpectedly, half a year had passed in a blink of an eye. "Thank you." Bailey Hongzhuang thanked her. Xia Jiqing waved her hand, "Boss, with our relationship, the word thank you is too distant." She had long regarded her boss as her own family. She had been with her boss for so long, and she had never been stingy with her. You know, the value of the precious elixirs that her boss gave her was unknown. She just gave the zither to her boss, it was nothing at all. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips evoked a bright smile, everything is understood without words. As Xia Jiqing said, with their relationship, there was no need to say more. "Boss, I'll head back first. You've just come out of the ruins and you've been on the move. You have a good rest." Bailey Hongzhuang replied. After Xia Jiqing left, Bailey Hongzhuang took a good look at nine-tailed zither. Bailey Hongzhuang's hand plucked, and the beautiful zither sound poured out. Bailey Hongzhuang did not use her power, so the zither sound did not have any power, but the penetrating power was very strong. Gong Shaoqing and the others in the next room heard this zither sound and immediately knew that Xia Jiqing had given the nine-tailed zither to Bailey Hongzhuang. They had already talked about it when they were outside the ruins. Xia Jiqing giving the nine-tailed zither to Hongzhuang was the best choice. At night, Bailey Hongzhuang sat quietly to cultivate. Xiao He, Xiao Bai and Bai Shi sat opposite Bailey Hongzhuang and also cultivated. Chapter 1481. Compared to Xiao He and Xiao Bai's hard work in cultivation, Bai Shi's cultivation was much simpler. All he did was gnaw on the demon crystals. He had been in seclusion for a long time and had not eaten any demon crystals. Now that he was looking at them again, he felt really blessed. They tasted extraordinarily delicious. Lady Xia and the rest were really nice to him. They had saved all the demon crystals for him when they hunted the demon beasts. Looking at the colorful demon crystals in front of it, it felt that it was really a happy beast. Just by looking at these demon crystals, he knew how much he had missed them while he was in seclusion. Hence, the white lion munched on the crispy food happily. Compared to Bai Shi's joy, Xiao He and Xiao Bai were obviously not in such a good mood. Their gluttonous nature was not inferior to Bai Shi's. Now that they were cultivating in peace, Bai Shi was happily eating at the side. Moreover, his voice was unusually loud. At the thought of this, Xiao He and Xiao Bai felt extremely unbalanced. Why was it so difficult for them to raise their cultivation level, but Bai Shi only needed to eat and eat? Shouldn't this kind of skill be more suitable for these two gluttons? The two beasts were already envious and jealous enough on a daily basis. Now, they even had to listen to the sound of the white lion eating while they were cultivating. This was simply torture, torture. In the next moment, Xiao He and Xiao Bai opened their eyes almost at the same time. They turned around and glared at Bai Shi. "What's there to eat? You only know how to eat," Xiao He said angrily. She had been eating more and more recently. Her face felt like a pile of meat and her eyes were not as big as before. Master is working hard to cultivate, but you're eating here. Aren't you affecting our cultivation? Xiao Bai also looked at Bai Shi unhappily. Bai Shi's cultivation level had broken through to Yellow Realm level 1 just by eating and eating. Seeing Bai Shi's increase in strength, Xiao Bai could not help but want to eat demon crystals. Bai Shi stared blankly at the furious Xiao He and Xiao Bai in front of him. He was still holding a half-eaten demon crystal in his hand. Faced with Xiao He and Xiao Bai's angry glares, Bai Shi was stunned for a moment. Then, he put the remaining half of the demon crystal into the end. The crunching sounds were exceptionally crisp. I think you guys are just envious of me. White Lion's expression was indifferent. I'm cultivating right now. Master doesn't have any objections. As soon as he said this, the anger in Xiao He and Xiao Bai's eyes burned even brighter. Asking him to be their disciple was like touching a sore spot. White Lion, ever since your strength increased, you've become more daring. Xiao He narrowed her eyes. Bai Shi had never been so cocky in the past. White Lion glanced at Xiao He and Xiao Bai, then slowly said, I'm now at Yellow Realm level 1. Seeing this, Xiao He and Xiao Bai looked at each other and said angrily, just you wait. We'll catch up to you very soon. In the next moment, Xiao He and Xiao Bai immediately took out 2 balls of cotton and stuffed them in their little ears. Then, they entered into cultivation mode again. During the time they were cultivating on the stairway, their strength had increased very quickly. They were only a little bit away from catching up to White Lion. Now, they would let White Lion be proud for a while. Seeing that Xiao He and Xiao Bai had entered into cultivation mode again, White Lion picked up the demon crystal and ate it again. In the past, he had always been suppressed by Xiao He and Xiao Bai. Now, he had finally turned the tables. However, the difference in their strength was not that great. If he did not eat more demon crystals, he would be beaten back to his original state in the future. Chapter 1482. In the following period of time, the cultivators from the Tiangang dynasty continuously traversed through the forest. Not only did the cultivators in their group have a great increase in their powers, the 3 beasts' battle powers were not simple as well. Even though the closer they were to the center of the small world, the stronger the monstrous beasts were, everyone's powers were increasing faster than the monstrous beasts' powers. Hence, it was extremely easy for everyone to deal with the monstrous beasts. Once the White Lion entered the forest, it was like a runaway wild horse. After it retracted its aura, many monstrous beasts thought that it was easy to bully. However, when the White Lion attacked, it was too late for those monstrous beasts to regret. Under such circumstances, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest hunted the monstrous beasts very quickly and their points continued to increase. As the number of monstrous beasts they hunted increased, everyone understood that different levels of monstrous beasts would have different points. The stronger the monstrous beasts' powers, the more points they would have. Hence, everyone gave up on the monstrous beasts that were not powerful enough and concentrated their efforts on the stronger monstrous beasts that they could handle. The monstrous beasts in the small world were as numerous as the hairs on a cow. They were unable to thoroughly identify these monstrous beasts. The only thing they could do was to kill the monstrous beasts with all their might to obtain points. Following the increase in their powers, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest moved at a much faster speed. Hence, after more than a month, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest could occasionally meet cultivators from other dynasties. Although the influence of the historical remains was great, not all cultivators had entered the historical remains. Back then, they were able to participate in the historical remains because the historical remains were not too far away from them. Once they were too far away, there was no possibility for them to enter. Hence, among all the cultivators who participated in the assessment, only a portion of them had entered the historical remains. On this day, Bailey Hongzhuang was cultivating in the house when she suddenly recalled that she had not entered the Chaos Ring to take a look after her powers had increased. Logically speaking, since her powers had increased by so much, there should be a new stone chamber in the Chaos Ring. The three beasts had been following her outside and had not returned to the Chaos Ring. They had forgotten about this point. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the three beasts also thought of this point and their faces were instantly filled with joy. "Master, let's quickly go take a look." The three beasts hurriedly spoke out. Every time a new stone chamber door opened, Master would obtain a treasure. They believed that the treasure obtained after entering the stone chamber this time would not be bad. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was filled with a clear radiance. She nodded and said, "All right." The next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang's mind moved and entered the primordial chaos ring, as Bailey Hongzhuang had predicted. The three beasts looked excitedly at the door of the stone room in front of them, wondering what kind of treasures there would be inside. Chapter 1483. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly pushed open the door to the stone room. Her pitch-black, phoenix-like eyes were filled with curiosity. Her heart was filled with awe towards this mystical chaos ring. Every time something appeared in it, it would bring her an indescribable shock. There were only things that she could not imagine and there was nothing that could not appear in the chaos ring. As Bailey Hongzhuang slowly pushed open the door to the stone room, the woman and the three beasts were able to clearly see the situation inside. However, when Bailey Hongzhuang and the three beasts saw the situation inside, the woman and the three beasts were stunned for a moment. Their eyes then lit up with confusion. "What's this?" Bailey Hongzhuang stared dazedly at the scene before her. Her eyes were filled with confusion and confusion. Bailey Hongzhuang could see that there was a large, black, flaming door at the back of the stone room. The continuously burning black object was clearly a dancing flame. However, as she stood in front of the flame, she could not feel any heat. On the contrary, there was a strange, eerie coldness to the flame. This large door looked as if it was made from black, nether metal. It emitted a shocking, metallic feeling and icy coldness, causing one to shudder. When the three beasts saw this, their hearts were filled with confusion. They have never seen anything like this before. "I don't know. There's only one large door in this stone room. It should be leading us to the back of this door, right?" Xiao He sized up the large door suspiciously. The feeling that this door gave off was far too eerie and cold. She could not help but frown. What? It couldn't understand why there was such a thing in the Chaos Ring. Most importantly, what was behind this door? This is strange. I can't shake off the feeling that this isn't anything good. It could be dangerous. Xiao Bai's eyes were filled with worry. One look at the situation of this door gave her a very strange feeling. She could not help but feel a sense of repulsion. I've never seen flames like this before. It's not hot either. This is far too strange. White Lion stared at the scene in front of him in a daze. This was completely beyond their understanding. They couldn't understand it at all. Bailey Hongzhuang also looked at the door. When she saw the cold and mysterious door, Bailey Hongzhuang felt a sense of familiarity. This mysterious and gloomy feeling was somewhat similar to when she first obtained the demon summoning scripture. The demon summoning scripture was also filled with a trace of darkness and mystery. At first glance, the dark black cultivation technique gave off an extremely simple and complex feeling, somewhat similar to the door in front of him. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang fall into deep thought as she stared at the door, the three beasts couldn't help but ask, "Master, what should we do? This door was so strange. Should they go in or not?" Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang collected her thoughts. "Let's go in and take a look." Bailey Hongzhuang quickly made her decision. Although the door looked very strange, there was an indescribable attraction to it. Since she was already here, she would naturally have to take a look. This was something that the Chaos Ring had prepared for her. If she didn't see it, she might lose a trump card. The next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang directly opened the door and walked in. Chapter 1484. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the three beasts walked out of the black door and saw the scene before them, they were completely dumbfounded. In front of Bailey Hongzhuang was a barren desert. The wind was strong and the sand was flying everywhere. The vast expanse of yellow gave off an unconcealable sense of desolation. What is this place? Bailey Hongzhuang stared in astonishment at the unfamiliar place in front of her. Could this be the world in the Chaos Ring? If not, why would such a scene appear after they had walked out of the black door? The stone room was not very big, but there was clearly another world behind it. The three beasts stood next to Bailey Hongzhuang and looked at the sky full of yellow sand. Their minds were filled with question marks. What was going on? Xiao He and Xiao Bai looked at each other. They had stayed in the Chaos Ring for so long and had walked around the outside of the palace many times. However, they had never seen such a place before. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Xiao He and Xiao Bai and asked, "Is there such a world outside the palace?" Xiao He and Xiao Bai shook their heads in unison, "No. Definitely not." They had stayed in the Chaos Ring for a very long time. Aside from the stone room, they had been to every other place that they could go. If such a world existed, they would have definitely noticed it. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang turned her gaze to the front again. Her ink-black phoenix eyes flickered with a wise light as countless thoughts surfaced in her mind. If this isn't a world in the Chaos Ring, could it be that the black door is a teleportation gate? Bailey Hongzhuang's willowy brows furrowed. The world in front of them couldn't be another small world, could it? Everything was just like the small world in the assessment competition. They had also been teleported here. However, the Chaos Ring was different. There was no need for teleportation. They would be here the moment they stepped out. Even though Bailey Hongzhuang had many guesses in her mind, she could not get a definite answer. Thinking about it, it was impossible for the Chaos Ring to give her an answer. However, it was extremely difficult for her to verify this point. At the very least, it was impossible in a short period of time. After understanding all this, Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude became free and easy again. She believed that the things that appeared in the Chaos Ring were definitely not useless things. Since she was already here, she might as well go and see what it was. In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang moved her feet and slowly walked forward. Upon seeing this, the three beasts followed closely behind Bailey Hongzhuang. With such a place suddenly appearing in the Chaos Ring, they didn't know if there would be other creatures living here. One person and three beasts walked forward. As far as Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes, all she could see was a sky full of yellow sand, giving people a feeling that it was endless. Walking in this kind of place, the visual impact would often bring a deeper sense of fatigue. Oh my God, this is just a desert. There's nothing here. Xiao He was speechless. Furthermore, under the scorching sun, its claws were almost roasted to a crisp. Xiao Bai and Bai Shi were equally helpless. If this was just a desert, what were they doing here? If it was a better area, we could grow flowers and plants. This is just a desert. There's nothing to play with except sand. Chapter 1485. Bailey Hongzhuang and the three beasties continued to move forward for a distance, but they still did not discover anything. This is a complete desert. It's completely useless. Xiao He was a little discouraged. She had thought that the Chaos Ring would give them some treasures this time. She never thought that it would turn out to be a desert. That meant that there was nothing left. To think that she had been so excited earlier. Now, she was more than just disappointed. Forget it. If there's nothing else, let's go back. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the three beasties were about to leave, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly noticed that the sand on the ground had suddenly started to move. A slightly bulging trail was charging towards them at an extremely fast speed. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the three beasties' eyes instantly sharpened. Their eyes were fixed firmly on the thing that had suddenly charged towards them. They did not need to think to know that the newcomer was not friendly. In the blink of an eye, Bailey Hongzhuang had only noticed this for a short second when a gigantic pitch-black centipede appeared in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. It did not hesitate to attack Bailey Hongzhuang. Following the centipede's appearance, Bailey Hongzhuang could clearly see the centipede's true appearance. This centipede was about 10 meters long and its entire body was suffused with a dark red color. Its hard outer shell reflected an eerie and terrifying light under the sunlight. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's reaction was extremely fast. The colored glazed sword immediately appeared in her hand and she attacked the gigantic centipede mercilessly. Ding! The colored glazed sword pierced the centipede's body and made a crisp sound. However, it did not manage to break through its hard outer shell. Bailey Hongzhuang's pitch-black phoenix eyes were filled with astonishment. She had always known how sharp the colored glazed sword was. Usually, the colored glazed sword would be able to successfully break through things that ordinary sharp weapons could not. However, she did not expect the centipede's shell to be so sturdy. It was beyond Bailey Hongzhuang's expectations. The giant centipede didn't give Bailey Hongzhuang any time to be shocked. Its two pincers viciously attacked Bailey Hongzhuang, as if it couldn't wait to snap Bailey Hongzhuang's neck. The elemental energy in Bailey Hongzhuang's body exploded in an instant, revealing the power of a Yellow Realm Level 8. Ever since Bailey Hongzhuang had successfully integrated the Rainbow Sacred Pearl into her body, her ability had increased from Orange Realm Rank 7 to Yellow Realm Rank 8. In the past month, she had been stabilizing her cultivation base. She was now completely familiar with the power of Yellow Realm Level 8. 7 colored essence energy poured out from Bailey Hongzhuang's body and poured into the glass sword, attacking the giant centipede once again. Ding ding ding. Bailey Hongzhuang used shape-shifting shadows as she fought with the giant centipede. She had never expected the giant centipede to be so powerful. It had completely exceeded her expectations. According to her senses, the giant centipede should be around Yellow Realm Level 8. However, the giant centipede's power was terrifying. Even though she had used Jade Body Refinement, she still couldn't fight against its power. Every time they clashed, the huge force would send her retreating. Therefore, she could only use shape-shifting shadows to attack from all sides. If she were to fight it head-on, her power was no match for it. Roar! White Lion roared as it looked at the giant centipede with a sharp gaze. Chapter 1486. Xiao He and Xiao Bai were also staring at the giant centipede. Ever since the giant centipede had appeared, it had been attacking them. As the Beast King, Bai Shi believed that as long as he roared, the giant centipede would quickly retreat. However, what happened next shocked Bailey Hongzhuang and the three beasties once again. Because, after Bai Shi roared, the giant centipede only paused for a moment before charging towards Bailey Hongzhuang once again, completely unaffected. Its black and ugly eyes were filled with excitement and greed. It has not seen such fresh and delicious food for a very long time. It must hurry up and eat them first. Otherwise, once the other fellows catch a whiff of this delicious meat, they would definitely charge over. When that happens, it would not have such a good opportunity. Upon seeing this, Xiao He, Xiao Bai, and even Bai Shi were dumbfounded. Why isn't this big fellow reacting at all? This shouldn't be. Xiao He stared at the scene in disbelief. Previously, they were well aware of the shocking power of Bai Shi's roar. As long as Bai Shi had released his aura, no demonic beasts would come near within a 100-mile radius. However, now that Bai Shi had released his aura and even roared, the giant centipede still did not react. This was just too strange. Could it be that this fellow has never seen a beast king before, so it doesn't understand? Xiao Bai could not understand it either. Logically speaking, submitting to a beast king should be something ingrained in the bones of demonic beasts. This giant centipede was just too strange. Roar! White Lion roared again, but the giant centipede still ignored it. Seeing this, the three beasties had no choice but to give up. It seems that the situation in this desert was very different from what they had imagined. It was as if normal things did not exist in this place. In the blink of an eye, Bai Shi realized that his roars had no effect and did not waste any more time. He immediately charged towards the giant centipede with Xiao He and Xiao Bai. This damned big guy actually dared to cause trouble for them. They definitely had to make it stay here forever. Bailey Hongzhuang continued to fight with the giant centipede. She had to admit that she hadn't encountered any extremely powerful demonic beasts in the small world recently. The giant centipede in front of her was a good target for practice. Moreover, this giant centipede was extraordinarily strong in both strength and defense. Although the time spent exchanging blows was not long, she had already discovered that this enormous centipede was more proficient in strength than in essence energy. Exchanging blows until now, Centipede did not utilize essence energy but relied entirely on brute strength. This was extremely shocking. With the addition of the three beasts, the originally ferocious centipede was at a disadvantage. The giant centipede wasn't stupid. After discovering that Bailey Hongzhuang had helpers, and that it might not succeed, the giant centipede's giant tail fiercely swept, throwing the three beasts far away. Its body quickly disappeared into the yellow sand. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately wanted to give chase, but the giant centipede disappeared into the yellow sand like a fish swimming into the sea. Its speed was extremely fast and she could not catch up to it in a short amount of time. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang decided not to give chase. Chapter 1487. I never thought that there would be mystical beasts here. Xiao Hei's round eyes were filled with shock. This mystical beast was very strange. She had never seen a mystical beast like this before. This mystical beast is very strange. Why was the white lion's roar ineffective against it? Xiao Bai stared suspiciously at the white lion. Logically speaking, this kind of situation should not have happened. The Beast King had always been at the top of the pyramid among mystical beasts. It was impossible for a mystical beast to not fear the Beast King. However, the giant centipede had clearly shown that it was not afraid at all. This was just too strange. What on earth had gone wrong? The white lion was equally puzzled. This trick of his had always worked. Whether it was on the Xingxian continent or in this small world, he had tried it many times and it had never failed. Now, it had actually failed in this strange place. What on earth had gone wrong? Bailey Hongzhuang's clear and bright eyes were filled with confusion. She also knew what the reason was. In reality, from the moment they had appeared in this desert, everything had seemed very strange. If you can't figure it out, then don't think about it. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was calm. She believed that after some time, they would understand the situation here better. The Chaos Ring would never allow her to enter a place of no use. This desert must have had a reason for its sudden appearance. Besides, the giant centipede was very powerful. It was an excellent opponent for her to spar with. She could train her body on a daily basis in this desert. Ever since she had emerged from the ruins, her body had become much stronger than before. She was not the only one. Gong Xiaoqing and the others' bodies had also improved by quite a bit. This allowed them to unleash more power in battle than before. Under these circumstances, all of them understood the benefits of improving their bodies to increasing their powers. Hence, during this period of time, everyone had paid great attention to improving their powers. However, improving one's body was a process. It was not very convenient to train in this small world. Since the Chaos Ring had a world like this, it was undoubtedly a place for her to train. Hence, Bailey Hongzhuang was very satisfied with the desert in the stone room. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the three beasts looked at each other and nodded. Their thinking was very simple. If even their master couldn't understand it, it was even more impossible for them to understand it. It was better not to make things difficult for themselves. I feel that life is full of demonic beasts. Xiao He sighed faintly. The pocket dimension was already filled with demonic beasts. Who would have thought that demonic beasts would appear in the Chaos Ring as well? They were really fighting with demonic beasts every day. They simply couldn't stop. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a smile. Just as Xiao He had sighed, they had been spending every day with demonic beasts. Originally, after 1,000 years, the demonic beasts on the Xingxian continent had changed quite a bit. She didn't know much about these demonic beasts, but now, she knew enough about them. Master, should we head back first? Xiao Bai asked. It had been quite some time since they entered the Door of Darkness. They still had to leave for the next city early tomorrow, so they couldn't stay here for too long. Chapter 1488. Bailey Hongzhuang stared at the vast expanse of yellow sand in front of her. Since this was the place in the Chaos Ring, it was only a matter of time before she figured everything out. It was only a matter of time. However, just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the three beasties were about to return to the Chaos Ring, they realized that the black door had disappeared. Bailey Hongzhuang scanned her surroundings. This was indeed the place where they had emerged from, but the black door had disappeared. The three beasties were completely dumbfounded when they saw this. It can't be. The Door of Darkness has disappeared. How are we going to return? Baisher widened his eyes at the scene before him. This was simply too unbelievable. When had the Door of Darkness disappeared without a trace? If the Door of Darkness had disappeared just like that, doesn't that mean that they would never be able to leave? Xiao He and Xiao Bai's faces turned pale in an instant. Master, we won't be trapped in this desert for the rest of our lives, will we? Bailey Hongzhuang continued to scan her surroundings. She was absolutely certain that they had appeared here previously. There must be a reason why the Door of Darkness had disappeared. A sense of helplessness flashed across Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes when she heard the three beasties' complaints and worries. However, she quickly regained her composure. Under such circumstances, there was no point in being anxious. She believed that since they had entered this place, they must have a way out. The primordial chaos ring shouldn't have trapped them all in this place. Bailey Hongzhuang carefully recalled the various situations they had encountered and they had entered the Door of Darkness. However, there had not been a single word of warning or explanation in that large stone chamber. Furthermore, there had not been a single reminder from the moment they had entered the Door of Darkness. They had been groping around on their own from the very beginning. What was the Chaos Ring's intention in making such an arrangement? Bailey Hongzhuang kept thinking, but from beginning to end, she never got the slightest bit of useful information. Faced with this barren desert, even she could not help but feel a sense of helplessness. If they had to stay behind in this desert, it would really break them down. Master, it can't be that we'll never be able to return, right? Xiao He had a bitter expression on her face. She did not want to be exposed to the sun every day. If she continued to be exposed to the sun, she would soon become as black as Xiao Bai. Bailey Hongzhuang had a complicated look on her face. We don't know yet. As long as we can't find the Door of Darkness, we can only take one step at a time. Ever since she obtained the Chaos Ring, she only felt that the Chaos Ring was an extraordinary existence. Every time she obtained a treasure or skill from the Chaos Ring, she couldn't help but be amazed. In fact, until now, she still didn't know why the Chaos Ring existed, and who could create such a powerful Chaos Ring. Upon hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the sadness in Xiao Hei's eyes deepened. If she had known this would happen, she wouldn't have entered the dark door. She never thought that she would end up in such a predicament. When they saw that Xiao Hei was still rambling on, Xiao Bai and Bai Shi immediately covered Xiao Hei's mouth. Master's mood had never been good to begin with. If Xiao Hei continued to ramble on, wouldn't Master's mood become even worse? Chapter 1489. Seeing that Xiao Hei had indicated that she would not speak any further, Xiao Bai and Bai Shi released their grip and glared accusingly at Xiao Hei. Xiao Hei lowered her head in embarrassment. She had never been able to get rid of her nagging habit. Every time she saw an unexpected situation, she could not help but want to complain. After Bailey Hongzhuang noticed the small movements between the three beasts, her delicate and pretty face couldn't help but reveal a smile. "Don't worry about me, the situation now has exceeded our expectations. The only thing we can do now is to wait." Bailey Hongzhuang understood that the door of darkness was not something that she could control. Everything would depend on the Chaos Ring's arrangements. She believed that they wouldn't be trapped here forever. However, the worry in her heart refused to dissipate. After all, she had been waiting for the day when she could see Di Beichen again after the conclusion of the Great Assessment. After being separated for such a long time, she had always missed that startling figure. From the strange encounter when they first met, to later becoming husband and wife by chance, and then to him following her all the way, protecting her left and right, Di Beichen had already left an indelible mark in her heart. Thinking back, their statuses had been so different, but Di Beichen had never treated this as a problem. Instead, he had always protected her by her side, preventing anyone from hurting her. Speaking of which, from the time they had met until now, she had never been separated from Di Beichen for such a long time. As time passed, her longing for Di Beichen grew with each passing day. It was a good thing that there was not much time left before the conclusion of the Great Assessment. She would be able to see Di Beichen again soon. She never thought that such a situation would occur in the Chaos Ring. If she could not get out just like that, she would not be able to accept it either. However, in this situation, there was no better way than to wait. She could only place her hopes on the Chaos Ring and hope that the Chaos Ring would not be so perverse. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the three beasts nodded. Xiao Hei did not dare to say any more discouraging words. At least they were still with their master. The woman and the three beasts remained on the spot and did not go far. They could only hope that the door of darkness would appear again. However, after waiting for a long time, they still did not see any movement from the door of darkness. Night slowly descended and the desert's unique difference in temperature was fully displayed. During the day, it was scorching hot, but at night, it was extremely cold. It was a good thing that Bailey Hongzhuang's heavenly bag had enough items to allow them to live here for a period of time. They did not need to worry about anything else. At night, one man and three beasts leaned together and looked at the stars in the sky. It had to be said that the stars in the desert were incomparably bright. If they were not trapped in this place, they would definitely find the scenery very beautiful. Just as the three beasties were about to fall asleep, the light in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes suddenly changed. She woke the three beasties up. "Careful. There's danger." Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's warning, the three beasts immediately perked up and looked around cautiously. The ground began to ripple once again. This scene was exactly the same as what they had seen during the day. The only difference was that it was even harder to distinguish in the dark. Chapter 1490. The three beasties stared angrily at the moving figure under the yellow sand. They had let that fellow go back in the day and now it had the audacity to come knocking at their door at night. This time, they wouldn't allow the enormous centipede to escape. Bang! The yellow sand suddenly flew into the air and a giant centipede appeared in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. It did not hesitate to attack Bailey Hongzhuang. This giant centipede was the one that had fought Bailey Hongzhuang during the day. It had thought that it would be easy to get rid of such a delicate fellow, but it did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang to explode with such shocking power. Furthermore, the three little fellows were harassing it from behind so it could not get rid of them. To the giant centipede, this was simply impossible. Hence, it had decided to launch another sneak attack at night. It had finally encountered such delicious food so it could not let them go just like that. The three beasties stared at the giant centipede as if they had been injected with chicken blood. They were already in a terrible mood today and had been holding back their resentment. They had mysteriously ended up in such a desolate and uninhabited place and could not return. Because they did not want to worsen their master's mood, they had held it in and kept quiet. Now that this giant centipede was so blind and had actually come looking for trouble again, they would make sure that it would not be able to return. Just as the three beasties were about to attack the giant centipede, they suddenly realized that another giant centipede had appeared on the ground. It was about the same size as the one they had seen during the day. I never thought that this fellow would have found help. Xiao Hei stared at the giant centipede in front of them. She wished that she could smash its skull into pieces from its hideous appearance. Who cares if it has found help or not? As long as it's here to cause trouble, we'll kill it all. Baisher's face was also filled with indignation. His heart was also filled with resentment today. What kind of joke was this? He was a dignified beast king and usually held an extremely high position among the demonic beasts. Today, these two ugly giant centipedes had actually dared to challenge his dignity as a beast king. He could not tolerate this. He wanted these two foolish fellows to know that a beast king's dignity was not to be challenged. In the next moment, the three beasts charged toward the other giant centipede. Before the giant centipede had even made a move, it had already sensed the intense fighting spirit of the three beasts. It couldn't help but be stunned. As a fellow demonic beast, he had some understanding of the emotions of demonic beasts. On the other side, Bailey Hongzhuang was already fighting with the giant centipede. Ding ding ding. Bailey Hongzhuang continued to fight with the giant centipede with the glass sword in her hand. Her figure flashed left and right like a wisp of green smoke. Her speed was so fast that the giant centipede was dazzled. After the fight during the day, Bailey Hongzhuang had gained some experience in fighting against giant centipedes. The giant centipede's strength was extremely strong, but its origin power was not strong. Thus, it was extremely unwise to fight it head-on. The best way to fight was to use one's speed to attack. That was the most effective way to solve the problem. After the giant centipede had exchanged blows with Bailey Hongzhuang, it was astonished to find that in just a short period of time, Bailey Hongzhuang had become much more difficult to deal with compared to during the day. 7-colored origin power poured out from Bailey Hongzhuang's slender hand. Bailey Hongzhuang's figure flashed and leaped onto the giant centipede's back. Chapter 1491. Bang! The rainbow-colored energy pierced through the giant centipede's hard shell and viciously attacked its brain. Ever since Bailey Hongzhuang had obtained the rainbow pearl, she had gained a better understanding of it. She realized that when the first rainbow-colored light had been produced in her body, the amount of rainbow-colored energy had also increased along with her increase in power. After merging with the rainbow pearl, she realized that she was extremely compatible with the rainbow pearl as if it had always been in her dantian. Ever since then, Bailey Hongzhuang was absolutely certain that the rainbow pearl had once existed in her body. Otherwise, she would not have been so compatible with it. The rainbow-colored energy was much stronger than ordinary energy in terms of energy and penetrative power. Hence, her current combat power was much stronger than before. Boom! The sound of a heavy object falling to the ground was heard. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly retracted her hand. The giant centipede had already fallen to the ground. Although the giant centipede was powerful, it was not fast enough. Hence, the giant centipede was definitely no match for her. She just needed to spend some time to defeat it. After dealing with the giant centipede, Bailey Hongzhuang then looked at the situation of the three beasts and prepared to help them. After all, the three beasts' cultivation levels were not as high as hers. Furthermore, the giant centipede was extremely powerful. It would not be easy for the three beasts to defeat it. However, when Bailey Hongzhuang saw the battle between the three beasts and the giant centipede, a look of shock surfaced in her eyes. The three beasts attacked the giant centipede in a frenzy as if they had been injected with chicken blood. It was as if they had all the energy in their bodies and were fighting to attack the giant centipede. In comparison, the giant centipede was very pitiful. It kept running in all directions, trying to escape. However, the three beasts had completely surrounded the giant centipede and did not give it any chance to escape. Bang! Xiao He punched the giant centipede's body fiercely. Who asked you to be so blind? Of all the people you could target, you actually dared to target us. You're really looking for death. Bang! Xiao Bai punched the giant centipede's body fiercely from the other side. I'll let you be my helper. I'll beat you up so badly that you'll never have the chance to be my helper again. Bai Shi immediately leaped onto the giant centipede's body and punched it fiercely. See if I don't beat you to death. The pitiful giant centipede was being treated as a punching bag by the three beasts. They went back and forth, enjoying it. After seeing this scene, Bailey Hongzhuang also put away the idea of helping. She only felt that the giant centipede attacking them was really unlucky. It seemed like the three beasts had quite a bit of resentment for being left behind in the desert today. Finally, the giant centipede, the giant centipede, the giant centipede, the giant centipede. Bang! Yellow sand flew up again, and the two giant centipedes' corpses were entangled together. Bai Shi did not stop there. Instead, he broke open the giant centipede's head and took out a demon crystal. When Bailey Hongzhuang, Xiao He, and Xiao Bai saw the demon crystal, their eyes filled with shock. They saw that the demon crystal was suffused with a demonic blackish-red color. It was completely different from the demon crystals that they usually see. Chapter 1492. Why is the color of this demon crystal so different? Xiao He looked at the demon crystal in Bai Shi's hand in confusion. It had never seen such a demon crystal before. Logically speaking, the demon crystals that they usually saw were normal. This kind of demon crystal was unheard of. Master, could it be that we've arrived in a strange world? Xiao He looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in disbelief. Everything that they had seen so far was completely different from what they usually saw. Not only the demon crystal, but the demonic beasts were also something that they had never seen before. Everything was strange. Bailey Hongzhuang took the demon crystal from Bai Shi's hand. After sensing it carefully, she realized that it was just like the demon crystals that they usually saw. This demon crystal was also filled with extremely rich energy. The only difference was that other than the rich energy in this demon crystal, there was also a faint trace of dark aura. Even with her experience, she had never seen such a situation. In her previous life, she had heard many things from her seniors, but she had never heard of such a situation. It seemed that the place that the Chaos Ring had brought them to was really a very strange place. Forget it, we'll know when we take a look. Xiao Bai said slowly. Now, they seemed to have arrived in a different world. Everything needed to be re-understood. Since they had already seen the giant centipede, it proved that there were other living creatures living here. In this way, they would definitely see other demonic beasts. When that time came, they would understand whether the giant centipede's demon crystal was different or whether the demon crystals of all the demonic beasts here were the same. Bailey Hongzhuang stroked Xiao Bai's head. Speaking of which, Xiao Bai and Xiao He looked exactly the same except for the difference in color. However, Xiao He was always startled, while Xiao Bai was much calmer. This was the difference in their personalities. In the next 2 days, Bailey Hongzhuang and the 3 beasts also saw other demonic beasts. Just as they had guessed, the demon crystals of all the demonic beasts here were shining with a black-red light. Not only that, many of the demonic beasts here were black-red in color. In the process of fighting, Bailey Hongzhuang and the 3 beasts realized that the demonic beasts here were not proficient in elemental energy. They were most proficient in physical strength. The strength of his body was truly extraordinary. The 3 beasts were also demonic beasts. Usually, when they fought with demonic beasts, they were never at a disadvantage in terms of strength. But here, their strength could not be compared to the other demonic beasts. As a result, they were very tired when they fought because it was too difficult to deal with them. Bailey Hongzhuang could only rejoice that the number of demonic beasts they encountered each time was small. Otherwise, with the strength of these demonic beasts, their situation would be terrible. After finishing another battle, the 3 beasts lay limply on the ground, physically. Every time they fought, they would be exhausted. Chapter 1493. Oh my God, this battle is so tiring. Xiao He lay on the ground and closed its eyes. Fighting a battle here was even more tiring than fighting 2 battles outside. It really did not understand why the monsters here were immune to a certain amount of elemental energy. It was really surprising that they could rely on physical strength to display such a strong battle strength. Fortunately, these monsters were not in the Xingxian continent. Otherwise, the human cultivators would have to face an even more troublesome environment. The monsters here are all thick-skinned. After fighting for so long, they did not react at all. If we stay here for too long, I'm afraid we'll all become Hercules. Xiao Bai could not help but sigh. Every time they fought with monsters, they had to use all of their strength. They even hated that they could not exceed their limits. If they continued like this, they would gradually get used to it. Hearing Xiao Bai's words, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. Just as Xiao Bai had said, she also had the same feeling. In the process of fighting, her strength would naturally increase. If they were not worried about not being able to go back, this was really a good place to increase their strength. After all, they would not be able to find so many evenly matched opponents on a normal day. Sigh, I really want to go back, Xiao He sighed faintly. After fighting with these thick-skinned monsters, it only felt that the monsters in the pocket world were too easy to bully. It only wanted to go back and fight monsters to earn points. There will always be a way to go back. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang's voice fell, a black light appeared behind them. Seeing this black light, Bailey Hongzhuang and the 3 beasties' eyes focused. Under the gaze of Bailey Hongzhuang and the 3 beasties, the black light gradually turned into the appearance of the Door of Darkness. The Door of Darkness. Seeing this familiar Door of Darkness again, the 3 beasties' faces could not help but reveal a trace of excitement. Bailey Hongzhuang heaved a sigh of relief when she saw the Door of Darkness. At the very least, this meant that they would not be trapped in the desert forever. In the next second, 1 man and 3 beasts stood up at the same time and walked into the Door of Darkness together. As Bailey Hongzhuang and the 3 beasties entered the Door of Darkness, the familiar stone room appeared before their eyes once again. Seeing this, the 3 beasties couldn't help but cheer, "We're back." Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved into an elegant smile, "Let's go out first." They had stayed in the desert for 3 days. Xia Jiqing and the others must still be waiting for her to set off together. She had mysteriously disappeared for 3 days. Everyone must be very worried about her. Upon hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the three beasts nodded and left the chaos ring. Bailey Hongzhuang appeared in the city once again. The moment she opened the door, she saw the bright sunlight. Compared to the scorching heat of the desert, the temperature in this small world was much better. "Boss, you're here." Xia Jiqing greeted Bailey Hongzhuang after seeing her walk out of the house. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. She was about to find an excuse to say that she had been in retreat for the past 3 days, but found that Xia Jiqing did not ask about this matter at all. "Today's weather is good. We should be able to reach the next city early. Since everyone is already up, let's go," Gong Shaoqing said. Chapter 1494. The three beasts also looked at this scene strangely, and their eyes revealed a puzzled expression at the same time. Logically speaking, if the master did not appear for 3 days, everyone should be very worried. It was absolutely impossible for there to be no reaction at all. This was too strange. Bailey Hongzhuang did not mention this problem, and the three beasts naturally did not ask. However, in the following conversation with Bailey Hongzhuang, they were shocked to find that they had spent 3 days in the desert, but in reality, it was only 1 night. Therefore, from beginning to end, Xia Jiqing and the others did not find any problems. After Bailey Hongzhuang knew this, she could not help but feel astonished. She clearly remembered that she had spent 3 days and 3 nights in the desert, but in reality, only 1 night had passed. Could it be that the time in this world simulated by the Chaos Ring was different from the time in the outside world? If this was the case, did it not mean that she had spent a lot more time in the Chaos Ring? If she had been cultivating in that desert, then she had cultivated for 3 days inside, but only half a day had passed outside. In this way, she had more time than everyone else. At the thought of this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but feel a strong surprise in her heart. All along, she felt that she had been cultivating too late in her life. Although there wasn't such a gap between them and ordinary cultivators, compared to the top cultivators of the continent, the gap wasn't ordinary. Di Beichen was only 2 years older than her, but his cultivation was much stronger than hers. Although she had not seen Lan Qingyan, with the rainbow pearl and all the excellent resources of the Lan family, Lan Qingyan's cultivation was definitely outstanding. She wanted to defeat Lan Qingyan, but her current cultivation was far from enough. She had always believed that as long as she had enough time, she would be able to defeat Lan Qingyan. However, reality told her that she did not have that much time. Her parents were still waiting for her to rescue them. Defeating the Lan family and the Yu family was definitely not something that could be done easily. Even with the help of Di Beichen and her master, if her strength was not strong enough, it was still just empty words. No matter what, the most important thing was still one's own strength. Now that she had the world in the Chaos Ring, she could turn 1 year's time into 3 years or even longer. This undoubtedly provided her with great convenience. However, Bailey Hongzhuang was still unsure of the true situation in the desert world. The last time they went in, the door of darkness disappeared. It was only after 3 days that they were able to come out successfully. The next time they went in, they could not guarantee when they would be able to come out. This was because they did not understand the rules of the door of darkness. This was the biggest problem. Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes. She would never give up such a good opportunity. As for understanding the rules of this desert world, she believed that it wouldn't be long before she completely grasped it. The three beasts looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes, which were glowing brighter and brighter. They could already guess what their master was thinking. Compared to the thoughts of Bailey Hongzhuang and the three beasts, Xia Jiqing and the others only felt that the efficiency of the three beasts today was particularly high. Chapter 1495. The three beasts only felt that the beasts in this small world were really easy to deal with, and the effort spent was also a lot less. Compared to the group of thick-skinned demon beasts in the desert world that did not react even after being beaten for a long time, the demon beasts here were simply too cute. As the three beasts felt that these beasts were too cute, the beasts in the forest suffered. Wherever the three beasts went, the beasts all fell to the ground, and Baishir was extremely happy to collect the demon crystals. Bailey Hongzhuang directly hung a Qianquan bag around Baishir's neck for him to store the demon crystals. Baishir's cultivation method was undoubtedly much simpler than theirs, he only needed to eat the demon crystals. After Bailey Hongzhuang determined that Baishir could eat as many demon crystals as he wanted, she no longer cared about Baishir. No matter how many demon crystals he ate, she would follow Baishir's preferences. After all, it was a good thing that Baishir's strength could be improved. After Xia Jiqing and the others hunted the demon crystals, they also gave them to Baishir. The demon crystals did not have much effect on them. Moreover, they had watched Baishir grow up, so they also had a lot of feelings for him. As night slowly fell, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others returned to their respective houses. As soon as she returned to the house, Bailey Hongzhuang could not wait to enter the chaos ring. She was eager to know if her guess was correct. If her judgment was correct, then she would have much more time to cultivate in the desert world than in the outside world. The three beasts also understood Bailey Hongzhuang's thoughts, and immediately followed Bailey Hongzhuang into the stone room. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the situation in the stone room. Just as she had entered before, the dark door was still burning with a strange black flame, giving people a mysterious and frightening feeling. The three beasts walked around the entire stone room and did not see the slightest description of the dark door. In this regard, they were also helpless. This chaos ring is really too much. Since it has an inheritance, can't it have a little more annotation? How can we figure out his true intentions in such a short time if we're just guessing like this? Xiao Hei's face was full of helplessness. If they weren't worried that they wouldn't be able to come out after entering, then the existence of this desert world would be good news for them. For some reason, he spent more time cultivating than other cultivators. If he still couldn't catch up with other cultivators, then he really didn't need to live anymore. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the door of darkness in front of her and said, "Let's go back and rest first." Hearing this, the three beasties couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. They looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in astonishment, obviously not expecting their master to decide to go back and rest first. "Master, aren't we going in?" White Lion could not help but ask. It had always had a telepathic connection with its master. Therefore, it had a certain understanding of its master's feelings towards the door of darkness. If he could really return from the door of darkness, then this desert world would truly be a treasure trove. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled, "I've been very tired in the desert and we've traveled non-stop today. Let's get some rest and adjust our condition. We'll go in tomorrow." Even though they had rested in the desert world, they had been extremely tense and had not been able to get a good rest because there could be danger all around them. Chapter 1496. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the three beasties were stunned. Then, their gazes turned gentle and warm. They knew very well how perverted their master's energy was. Come to think of it, Master had chosen not to enter because she had considered them. Bailey Hongzhuang then exited the chaos ring. Even though she could not confirm if her guess was correct, she had a faint premonition that everything was as she had imagined. After returning to the house, Bailey Hongzhuang entered a state of cultivation. To the current her, cultivating while fighting was undoubtedly the best state of cultivation. Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai also began to cultivate after seeing that their master had begun to cultivate. Baishir continued to eat the demon crystals as usual. He had gained quite a lot today and could now have a full meal. As he ate, Bai Shi suddenly took out a demon crystal that he had obtained in the desert. The black and red demon crystal was filled with a demonic smell. Bai Shi stared at the demon crystal for a while and was suddenly curious as to whether different demon crystals would taste different. After seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang, Xiao He, and Xiao Bai had closed their eyes and were focused on cultivating, Bai Shi immediately placed the demon crystal into his mouth. Crunch! Bai Shi chewed on the different demon crystal and felt that the taste was slightly different. It was sweeter than the demon crystals that he usually ate. The taste is not bad. Bai Shi sighed. The taste was much better than he had imagined. It was not disgusting at all. On the contrary, it was very delicious. At the thought of this, Bai Shi felt that he had not had enough and immediately took out another demon crystal to eat. However, Bai Shi did not notice that as he was eating the demon crystal, a wisp of black aura had quietly spread out. Bailey Hongzhuang was halfway through her cultivation when she heard a series of breathing sounds. Upon closer inspection, Bailey Hongzhuang realized that the three beasties had fallen asleep and were sprawled out on the bed, snoring. Seeing this scene, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes could not help but fill with a smile. With these three little fellows by her side, she really felt a lot happier. After covering the three little guys with a blanket, Bailey Hongzhuang continued to cultivate. After 4 days without rest, the three little fellows were too tired. After all, not everyone was used to using cultivation as a substitute for sleep like her. When she first tried this, she was also not used to it, but after so many years of perseverance, she got used to it. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang woke up the three beasts and left the city with Xia Jiqing and the others. At night, the three beasties were full of energy and wanted to enter the door of darkness with Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang stood in front of the door of darkness and looked at the three beasts who were ready to attack. She smiled and said, "I can't be sure when I'll be able to come out after going in. You must be mentally prepared." "Don't worry, Master. We'll definitely be fine." Xiao He was the first to speak. It now knew how long-winded it had been the last time. This time, it would definitely not be so long-winded. Xiao Bai and Bai Shi also nodded, "We're fine too. Wherever Master is, we'll be there." Their master was working so hard to cultivate. As their master's contract beasts, they naturally could not hold her back. Chapter 1497. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze fell upon the three beasts who had made their solemn vow. Her clear, phoenix-like eyes were filled with a clear and gentle smile. "Since you've all made the best preparations, let's set off." Once Bailey Hongzhuang had spoken, the three beasts nodded and walked into the door of darkness. Bailey Hongzhuang and the three beasts walked into the door of darkness together. Indeed, they had reappeared in the desert once again. Bailey Hongzhuang and the three beasts were no longer as shocked as they had been when they first saw the barren yellow earth. Instead, they were filled with understanding. Bailey Hongzhuang had remained in the same spot ever since they had stepped out of the door of darkness. She wanted to know how the door of darkness had disappeared. The three beasts and Bailey Hongzhuang sat in the same spot. What they needed to know the most now was when the door of darkness would reappear. A moment later, Bailey Hongzhuang noticed that the door of darkness in front of them had turned into a ball of black light and slowly disappeared from its original spot. When Xiao He saw this, she could not help but cry out in shock. Indeed, the door of darkness had disappeared on its own. They had walked out of the door of darkness the last time, so they had not noticed the disappearance of the door of darkness. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded gently. She then turned to look at the vast expanse of yellow sand behind them and said, "We'll have to stay in this desert for a few more days. I wonder when we'll be able to leave again." The three beasts had already mentally prepared themselves before they had arrived. Hence, they appeared very calm at this moment. Soon after, the woman and the three beasts began to walk forward. Bailey Hongzhuang had come here to cultivate. Hence, she had already prepared herself for hardships. Only through hardships can one rise to the top. If she wants to raise her cultivation level, she must endure all of this. The figures of the woman and the three beasts stretched out under the sunlight. Not long after, Bailey Hongzhuang noticed that the ground had begun to ripple once again. The three beasts reacted very quickly as well. Xiao He and Xiao Bai quickly grew in size and became even bigger than Bailey Hongzhuang. Bang! Yellow sand flew everywhere. If it had been any other cultivator who had been caught off guard, they would have been blinded. However, after staying in this desert world for 3 days, Bailey Hongzhuang and the three beasties had a certain amount of experience in such a situation. Hence, this did not affect them at all. Instead, they quickly charged towards the demonic beast that had ambushed them. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A gigantic crab appeared in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. This crab was even larger than the giant centipede, and its 2 huge pincers reflected a terrifying and cold light. Another fellow with an iron skin. When Bailey Hongzhuang, Xiao Bai and Bai had Hongzhuang, Xiao Bai, Hongzhuang He, when it fights, Bailey Hongzhuang would feel excruciating pain but the other party would not feel anything at all. It was simply too infuriating. Bailey Hongzhuang unleashed the Jade Body Tempering Technique. The Jade Body Tempering Technique was divided into 3 stages. Until now, she had only mastered the first stage. It just so happened that there were many opponents in this desert world. She would use these demonic beasts as practice and work hard to master the second stage of the Jade Body Tempering Technique. Then, Bailey Hongzhuang directly affected the gigantic scorpion. Bang, bang, bang. Chapter 1498. The giant scorpion clearly did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang to compete with it in terms of strength. However, after sensing that Bailey Hongzhuang was not weak either, the giant scorpion was clearly astonished and attacked Bailey Hongzhuang fiercely. Bailey Hongzhuang was not in a hurry to get rid of the giant scorpion immediately. On one hand, she could increase her strength during this process of fighting. On the other hand, she could also increase her battle experience. The three beasts had also seen through Bailey Hongzhuang's plan. They could tell that the giant scorpion was no match for their master. Hence, the three beasts looked at each other and decided to just watch from the side. At the same time, they were also paying attention to whether there would be any other dangers. The beasts that could survive in this desert were those who could withstand heat and cold. There were not many of them, but their battle power was very tenacious. Furthermore, these beasts had always lived in the desert and were very skilled in hiding in the desert. Most of the time, it was impossible to guard against them. Perhaps there were beasts nearby waiting for an opportunity to make a move. Hence, they needed to be more careful. Bang! Bang bang! The battle between Bailey Hongzhuang and the giant scorpion was like a raging fire. From the fighting characteristics of the giant scorpion, she found that the demonic beasts in this desert world had some similar characteristics, which was very interesting. After fighting for a while, Bailey Hongzhuang realized that she had a good understanding of the giant scorpion's battle style. She immediately made a fierce move and knocked it to the ground. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang had dealt with the giant scorpion, the three beasts blinked their eyes and applauded together. They looked extremely adorable. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but chuckle. These three little fellows' bootlicking skills have improved recently. Baisher's figure flashed and directly landed on the giant scorpion's body. He then skillfully took out the demon crystal. Bailey Hongzhuang saw that Baisher was also extremely interested in the demon crystal and could not help but frown. She said, "Baisher, we don't know much about this demon crystal. We don't know if there will be any side effects. It's better if you don't eat it first." She was prepared to show this demon crystal to Di Baichen after the assessment. Perhaps Di Baichen would know about it. Or perhaps, she could ask her master when she saw him. They were all experienced and knowledgeable people. Perhaps they would have a certain understanding. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Baisher slowly placed the demon crystal into his Qianquan bag even though he could not resist the urge to swallow it. Bailey Hongzhuang and the three beasties continued to move forward. When they encountered a demonic beast, they would attack it. When they were tired, they would stop to rest. At this speed, their progress was not slow. However, as far as the eye could see, the surroundings were completely barren, and it was impossible to tell exactly how far they had walked. Fortunately, as there were not many demonic beasts here, they were not too tired. After a day and a half, Bailey Hongzhuang and the three beasties returned the way they had come. They had left a mark at the exit. As long as they could return after 3 days, they could be completely at ease. Unexpectedly, on the way back, Bailey Hongzhuang and the three beasties had encountered an extremely large number of demonic beasts. Even though Bailey Hongzhuang and the three beasties had used all their skills, they were still unable to return to the starting point on time. Chapter 1499. Bailey Hongzhuang furrowed her brows. Indeed, the plan could not keep up with the changes. Originally, there should be enough time. Who would have thought that they would be surrounded by a group of beasts halfway? These demonic beasts were extremely powerful. Although the result was certain, it would take a lot more time than usual to get rid of them. Furthermore, these beasts were moving at an extremely fast speed in the desert. Even if they wanted to get rid of them, it would not be easy. As such, they really could not return to the starting point in the designated time. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart was very complicated. If they did not return to the starting point, when would they be able to return again? Let's get rid of them first. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze fell on the beasts in front of her. The impatience caused by not being able to make it in time could be said to have all exploded on the beasts. Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly increased her speed. She raised her hand and slashed her sword mercilessly. Ding ding ding. Bailey Hongzhuang's figure seemed to have turned into a white shadow. The sounds of attacks were constantly heard. The beasts kept looking left and right, but they could not keep up with Bailey Hongzhuang's speed. When the three beasts saw this, they unleashed all their strength. Originally, they had planned everything well this time. They didn't expect that someone would come out of nowhere and ruin their plan. One could imagine the anger in their hearts. The group of beasts realized that the delicious food in their eyes had suddenly exploded with unparalleled fighting power, completely overturning their original advantage. Bang! Bang bang! The efficiency of Bailey Hongzhuang and the three beasties completely erupted. Their fighting strength was also extremely amazing. Demonic beasts fell one after another in front of them, but their movements did not slow down at all. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the three beasts finished off the group of beasts, they only felt exhausted and sweating profusely. Fighting these guys was too exhausting. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the sun in the sky. The 3 days were almost up, but they could not make it back in time. The situation was truly terrible. The three beasties fell into silence. If they couldn't return in 3 days, they could only wait for the next 3 days. However, just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the three beasties were prepared to wait for another 3 days, a black ray of light suddenly appeared in front of them. Bailey Hongzhuang and the three beasties were no strangers to this black light as they had seen it before. The black light spun and grew bigger. Finally, it turned into a door of darkness that stood in the desert. Seeing the appearance of the door of darkness, the eyes of the man and the three beasts were filled with pleasant surprise. Could it be that the door of darkness will appear in front of us after 3 days? Xiao Bai quickly figured out the trick behind this. If this was really the case, then they would not need to return to their original location in the future. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes fell on the black door, and then she walked in. After returning to the extremely familiar stone room, Bailey Hongzhuang's face was filled with a smile. It seems that we only need to stay in the desert world for 3 days every time we enter. The three beasties nodded. This was really a pleasant surprise. Chapter 1500. Bailey Hongzhuang's bright and beautiful eyes were filled with joy. She was also happy with this discovery. With this time, the speed of her cultivation would be greatly accelerated, and she could feel that under such a high-intensity battle, her physical fitness had also improved slightly. She believed that as long as this continued, the effect of this improvement would become more and more obvious. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the three beasts left the Chaos Ring, it happened to be dawn. One person and three beasts rested for a while, then went out to meet Gong Shaoqing and the others, and continued to move to the next city. Now there were more and more cultivators walking around them, but the closer it was to the end of the assessment, everyone's movements were particularly careful. Most of the cultivators who were able to persevere to this point had some ability. If they were not completely confident, it was best not to make a move. Otherwise, if they were to fail miserably, they would be looking for trouble for themselves. On this day, in the process of walking, Xia Jiqing saw that the three beasts looked tired. When they were dealing with the monster beasts, they were not so excited. It was like they were two different beasts from before, which was a bit strange. Xia Jiqing couldn't help but walk to Bailey Hongzhuang's side and asked doubtfully, "Boss, did Baisher and the others fight with each other last night? Why are they so listless?" Listening to Xia Jiqing's question, Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly stunned. She immediately noticed the state of the three beasts and couldn't help but smile. They didn't rest well last night. Originally, their state was good, but later they encountered a group of monster beasts. After a battle, they were really exhausted. It was normal for the three beasts to be like this now. Xia Jiqing looked at Bailey Hongzhuang doubtfully. This ambiguous answer was a bit strange. "Boss, you're not hiding something from us, are you?" Xia Jiqing looked suspiciously at Bailey Hongzhuang. This was not like the boss's usual style of answering. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Xiao He and Xiao Bai are very jealous that White Lion can increase his strength just by eating. With Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Xia Jiqing immediately understood. Little Black and Little White were real gluttons. Just by looking at their round bodies, one could tell that they were gluttons. Thinking about it, the two of them must have been dissatisfied with the White Lion eating, so they started fighting. She knew that when these three beasts were on good terms with each other, they would stand on the same side. But when they fought, they would be equally merciless. No wonder they are like this. The White Lion's cultivation method is indeed envied by other beasts. In the following period of time, Bailey Hongzhuang had been resting one night and entering the desert world the other. As long as they stayed in the desert world for 3 days, they would be able to come out. After grasping this rule, they were completely relieved. However, there was indeed a certain problem with not being able to come back anytime and anywhere. Once, Bailey Hongzhuang and the three beasts encountered a very powerful group of monster beasts. Even with their strength, they could only escape. Therefore, under the pursuit of the group of monster beasts, Bailey Hongzhuang and the three beasts played a life and death game. They ran all the way until the dark door appeared 3 days later and they safely returned to the small world. Chapter 1501. In this process, Bailey Hongzhuang and the three beasts found that in the desert world, the closer they were to the center, the stronger and more numerous the monsters were. In the beginning, the place where they appeared was in the periphery, and the number of monsters was not many. At most, they would only encounter a few. However, as they gradually went deeper, the number of monsters increased, and their strength became more and more powerful. Now, they no longer continued to move forward, and only stopped in a nearby area. This was because, with their current strength, it was not enough to cross the entire desert. If they continued to move forward, once they entered the territory of the monsters, it would be another scene of fleeing for their lives. In such a situation, Bailey Hongzhuang found that she had been unable to cultivate to a higher level, but there was a trend of improvement. Sure enough, the most suitable martial arts technique was still to escape. Only when they were extremely nervous and needed to exert themselves to the limit, would the martial arts technique have the possibility of improving. The three beasts' original speed was not slow, and after escaping so many times, their speed gradually increased. After all, in such a dangerous situation, it would be terrible if they did not increase their speed. Xiao He and Xiao Bai only felt that they had lost a bit of weight after running like this, but in Bailey Hongzhuang's view, this was just an excuse for them to eat more. Under the attention of Gong Xiaoqing and the others, they found that the fighting power of Bailey Hongzhuang and the three beasts was constantly increasing, and the speed of their progress was much faster than theirs. Regarding this, Xia Jiqing and the others were somewhat speechless. Bailey Hongzhuang's talent was very abnormal, and her three contracted beasts were also abnormal. It was really infuriating to compare with others. Hongzhuang was so powerful, but Mo Yinjue's cultivation speed was also very terrifying. With two abnormal monsters in the team, they only felt that they were living in fear every day, and their hearts were very tired. On this day, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked into Qini City in the evening. As their strength increased, their speed became faster and faster. It was extremely easy to reach the city before nightfall. There was no need to race against time like before. Everyone spent more time hunting demonic beasts. Every day, the number of demonic beasts they hunted was not small. Everyone's points were constantly rising. However, everyone was still uncertain because they didn't know how many points the cultivators from other large empires possessed. If you want to get a good result in the end and enter the Tiangang zone, the points are absolutely not enough. Now, there were only 3 months left before he left the small world, so it became even more urgent to obtain points. It wasn't just Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. They could also feel the same change in emotions among the cultivators in the other teams. Under such circumstances, everyone keenly noticed that the conflicts between cultivators had become more frequent. He didn't have enough points. With only 3 months left, it was obviously not enough to rely on himself to hunt demonic beasts. The fastest way was to snatch points from the hands of other cultivators. This was the consensus of almost everyone. As a result, the cultivators from the weak empires would suffer. If they obediently handed over their points, it would be fine, but if they didn't, it would be a complete wipeout. Chapter 1502. As Bailey Hongzhuang and the others came to the central area of the small world, they found that most of the people around them were from large and medium-sized dynasties. As for the teams from small dynasties, there were fewer and fewer of them. However, in such a situation, Bailey Hongzhuang also found that some teams from small dynasties had merged into one team in order to protect themselves. Only in this way could they avoid some risks to a certain extent. When I think of the end of the assessment, I can't help but be excited. Xia Jiqing's face could not hide the excitement. Compared to the anxiety and nervousness in her heart when she first came to the small world, she was now looking forward to returning to the Xingxian continent. Staying in the small world for so long, eating dry food was really not as good as the hot dishes outside. As long as she was out of the small world, she must eat a big meal. Hearing this, the faces of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others could not help but be filled with joy. Bailey Hongzhuang's mind could not help but think of the pale golden figure. The 2-year period was almost up, she did not know if he had changed in these 2 years. It is said that after the assessment, the cultivators who have successfully entered the sect will have a month's holiday to relax. Bai Junyu said with a smile. Junyu, which dynasty is your family from? Yuan Xiaoman asked curiously. She knew that Bai Junyu and the others were representing the Tian Gang sect with their boss, but she was not clear about the dynasty they were from. Bai Junyu smiled slightly. The Wind Bo dynasty is a small dynasty. As soon as Bai Junyu's voice fell, the voices of the cultivators not far away rang out. This Wind Bo dynasty is just a small dynasty. I did not expect these cultivators to have the courage to offend the Wu Jin dynasty. The cultivators of small dynasties can only be cannon fodder when they participate in the assessment. It is already a good thing to be able to go back alive, but they are still not willing to hand over their points. Is this not courting death? Sigh, there are always some people who do not understand the situation. When they lose their lives, they will regret it. When many cultivators talked about this matter, they all sighed faintly and treated it as a joke. If a small dynasty wanted to make a mark in the assessment, it was a rare thing in 100 years. Even if their points were not taken away, they would not have the opportunity to enter a sect. Therefore, as far as they were concerned, the actions of the cultivators from the Wind Sweep dynasty were too stupid and meaningless. Yuan Xiaoman couldn't help but be stunned for a moment, looking in the direction of the cultivator who spoke in surprise. Did I just hear? Are they also talking about the Wind Bo dynasty? In fact, she had never even heard of the Wind Bo dynasty before. The Snow Origin dynasty was also a medium-sized dynasty, so they would only pay attention to the large and medium-sized dynasties. Small dynasties would never enter their sights. The gazes of Bai Junyu and the rest also changed a little. They never thought that they would coincidentally meet a cultivator from the Wind Bo Empire in Chini City. They also noticed it when they were in the ruins, but none of them paid much attention to it. After all, they had a certain understanding of the grudges between Bailey Hongzhuang and Xianyuan Huan. Chapter 1503. For a while, the cultivators of the Tian Gang dynasty fell into silence. Only Yuan Xiaoman and Yuan Jixin looked at the crowd in confusion. They didn't know what had happened and why everyone's performance had become like this. Gong Xiaoqing and the others pretended not to hear these words. In their position, they naturally didn't have a good impression of Xianyuan Huan, so they simply acted as if they didn't know him. Master, it seems that Xianyuan Huan and the others are in trouble. Little He frowned. Others might not understand, but he, who had been with his master every day, knew very well that his master had long forgotten everything in the past. Di Beichen and Xianyuan Huan, no matter from which aspect, Xianyuan Huan was not comparable. For such a man, the master would not have the slightest nostalgia, nor would she care about him. All the previous grievances had long disappeared after Di Beichen accompanied the master back to the Fengbo country, but now Xianyuan Huan and the others were in trouble. Should they help? It's a miracle that this group of guys can persist all the way in the assessment competition until now. Baisher's eyes showed a hint of surprise. According to his thoughts, with the strength of Xianyuan Huan and the others, they should have already fallen in this assessment competition. He didn't expect them to be able to persist until now. This was really surprising. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't care much, but after seeing the silent appearance of Gong Xiaoqing and the others, she couldn't help but show a smile on her face. Why do you all have such expressions? The past is the past, I don't care about it anymore. The light and beautiful voice was free and indifferent. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression didn't show the slightest reluctance or stiffness. After seeing this scene, everyone was relieved. It seemed that they were worried too much. Yuan Xiaoman and Yuan Jixin looked at each other. It seemed that there was a relationship between the master and the Fengbo country. Then let's find a place to stay first. Xia Jiqing smiled. Whether it was in the past or not, she didn't want to make the master unhappy. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly, okay. The group headed towards the center of the city. As they got closer to the center of the small world, they gradually gained more knowledge about the cultivators. However, at the same time, the size of the city gradually expanded. It was now twice the size of the original city. Xianyuan Huan, I didn't expect you to be so stubborn. If you don't hand over the points, I'll break your bones inch by inch. Many cultivators gathered around to watch the show. Xianyuan Huan was lying on the ground with a pale face and a trace of blood on the corner of his mouth. Zhuangzhais, you will get your retribution. Xianyuan Huan clenched his teeth as he looked at Zhuangzhais. Ever since they had learned about the situation in the small world, they had been very careful, as if they were treading on thin ice. They had never offended any cultivators. Under such circumstances, they had managed to survive until today. However, Zhuangzhais treated them like clowns. How hateful. However, no matter how angry he was, the strength of their team was no match for the cultivators of the Wu Jin dynasty. He had promised to hand over the points, but Zhuangzhais was still unwilling to let them go. He was completely playing with them. Chapter 1504. You think you're qualified to curse me? Zhuangzhais stepped on Xianyuan Huan's chest, his eyes full of disdain and contempt. I, Zhuangzhais, am not afraid of anything. Your curse can only scare useless guys like you. The faces of the cultivators of the Wind Bo dynasty became extremely ugly. Zhuangzhai's insult was too hateful. Bailey Haoshuan stared at Zhuangzhais. He had never seen such a hateful guy. He wanted to kill him. Boom! Zhuangzhais kicked Bailey Haoshuan. You dare to stare at me? I think you're looking for death. Under Zhuangzhai's foot, Bailey Haoshuan's figure was directly kicked a few meters away. He spat out a mouthful of blood and his breath instantly withered. Bailey Haoshuan's face was full of despair. He thought that after 3 more months, they would be able to return safely. He did not expect that in the end, they would not be able to hold on. However, Bailey Haoshuan noticed that there was a pair of feet next to his face. Zhuangzhai's kick had directly kicked him to the middle of the street. Looking at the pair of feet, Bailey Haoshuan was stunned to see Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Haoshuan could not help but blink. He looked at the figure in front of him again. After confirming that it was Bailey Hongzhuang, his eyes could not help but be filled with a touch of hope, but soon despair. With what they had done to Bailey Hongzhuang, it was impossible for Bailey Hongzhuang to help them. Bailey Hongzhuang intended to walk directly, but she did not expect Bailey Haoshuan to suddenly appear at her feet. Gong Shaoqing and others were also dumbfounded after seeing this scene. It was really what they did not want to see. They wanted to ignore him directly, but he had to appear in front of them. However, after seeing the miserable state of Xianyuan Huan, their faces also changed a bit. Speaking of which, Xianyuan Huan was also a cultivator of the Kanglan College. It was a kind of fate to be able to meet him in this assessment. If it were not for the grudge between Xianyuan Huan and Bailey Hongzhuang, they would definitely save him. However, who told Xianyuan Huan to treat Bailey Hongzhuang like that? They could only pretend that they did not see it. Xianyuan Huan also noticed Bailey Hongzhuang. His originally pale face had become pale. If he was destined to die in this assessment today, he did not want such a shameful scene to appear in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. He did not expect that Bailey Hongzhuang would see such an unbearable scene when he was about to die. The depression and sadness in his heart could not help but deepen a little. At the same time, the hatred in his eyes when he looked at Zhuangzhai's grew even more intense. After Zhuangzhais noticed Xianyuan Huan's gaze, he couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang, his eyes changed slightly, and a mocking smile appeared on his lips. As soon as Zhuang Zhai said this, Xianyuan Huan's expression changed and he glared at Zhuang Zhai with resentment. Even though Zhuang Zhai had humiliated him before, he had never hated him so much. He liked Bailey Hongzhuang. Since Bailey Hongzhuang had saved him, it was just that his previous actions had made him lose the qualifications to like Bailey Hongzhuang. Now, Zhuang Zhai's words were no different from trampling on his dignity and feelings. Chapter 1505. Oh, I didn't expect there to be such a beautiful lady in the assessment. You have good taste. Zhuang Zhai glanced at Xianyuan Huan and slowly stood up. However, look at yourself. Do you think you're worthy? Zhuang Zhai, you won't have a good ending. Xianyuan Huan looked at Zhuang Zhai with resentment. Every word that Zhuang Zhai said was like rubbing salt on his wound, causing him endless pain. Zhuang Zhai's figure flashed and appeared in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. Miss, Xianyuan Huan is really a toad that wants to eat swan meat. However, I've taken a fancy to you. Zhuang Zhai looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with ridicule. He wanted Xianyuan Huan to understand that the gap between them was an insurmountable gap. The eyes of all the cultivators present fell on the bodies of Bailey Hongzhuang and Zhuang Zhai. However, when everyone saw Bailey Hongzhuang's group, their faces changed. Cultivators from the Big Dipper dynasty. In fact, many cultivators had never heard of the name Big Dipper dynasty. However, they were not unfamiliar with Bailey Hongzhuang's group. In the ruins, the Big Dipper dynasty's performance was extremely stunning. Even if they were only a medium-sized dynasty, their team's battle strength was extremely powerful. Many cultivators had personally witnessed their battle strength. Therefore, no one dared to treat them as a medium-sized dynasty's team. Even the cultivators from the Qinrun dynasty had to apologize to Bailey Hongzhuang. Just this point alone showed how powerful Bailey Hongzhuang was. Although the Martial Jin dynasty was also a large dynasty, in their view, Zhuang Zhai's group might not be a match for Bailey Hongzhuang's group. Is this Zhuang Zhai stupid? He actually dared to provoke Bailey Hongzhuang. Zhuang Zhai said that the cultivators from the Wind Bo dynasty were overestimating themselves. Now, they are the ones who are overestimating themselves. This is going to be a good show. I bet that the cultivators from the Martial Jin dynasty are going to be unlucky. While the cultivators from the Martial Jin dynasty sympathized with them, the cultivators from the Martial Jin dynasty had no idea what was going on. They only had a smug face and thought that they were the main characters of this matter. Indeed, a toad wants to eat swan meat. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved into a sarcastic smile. Her eyes slowly fell on Xianyuan Huan's body. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the smile in Zhuang Zhai's eyes also spread a little. It seems that we are heroes. Without waiting for Zhuang Zhai's voice to fall, Bailey Hongzhuang had already retracted her gaze and turned to look at Zhuang Zhai's. I'm talking about you. Zhuang Zhai's tease was talking to him. Are you calling me a toad? Zhuang Zhai's inconceivably raised his tone. With the strength of the Martial Jin dynasty, there were not many people who dared to say that to him. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyebrows raised slightly. Her expression was a bit matter-of-fact. Isn't this obvious? With that, Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at the surrounding cultivators. Do you think he is a toad? Yes. The surrounding cultivators laughed one after another, especially those who knew how powerful the Tiangang dynasty was. Compared to the results of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, this Zhuang Zhai's was indeed nothing. Chapter 1506. The cultivators of the Wu Jin dynasty were also dumbfounded after seeing this scene. Previously, when they were dealing with the cultivators of the Wind Bo Empire, none of them said a word. Now, this woman in white only said a few words and there were actually so many cultivators responding. This was too strange. Do you know, Zhuang Zhai's looked at Bailey Hongzhuang fiercely. He wanted to stand out in front of all the cultivators today, but he was slapped in the face by Bailey Hongzhuang. It was really unbearable. However, without waiting for Zhuang Zhai's words to finish, Bailey Hongzhuang interrupted him again. I'll give you a chance. Within 3 seconds, take your dog and disappear in front of me. Otherwise, no one will be left alive. As soon as these words came out, the cultivators present all took a breath of cold air and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in shock. Although they knew that the cultivators of the Tiangang dynasty were very strong, they did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang to be so domineering. As soon as she opened her mouth, no one would be left alive. This kind of domineering was not something that ordinary people could have. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang being so domineering, Xia Jiqing and the others behind her had a thick smile on their faces. Speaking of which, since they came out of the ruins, many cultivators knew how powerful they were and did not dare to find trouble with them. They had not seen such a boastful cultivator for a long time. Their boss dared to flirt with them. Wasn't this looking for death? Zhuang Zhai's did not know what to say at the moment. He only felt that it was too ridiculous. The other party was just a team from a medium-sized dynasty. They were so arrogant to him and even threatened to leave no one alive. This was too funny. Zhuang Zhai's face was full of smiles, but the glint in his eyes was getting deeper and deeper. He wanted to let this stupid woman know what a stupid move it was to offend him. Huh, you're playing. However, Bailey Hongzhuang did not want to listen to him at all. 3. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was cold and indifferent. She didn't even look at Zhuang Zhai's. Speaking any more nonsense to such a brain-dead person would be a waste of time. When he heard Bailey Hongzhuang interrupting him again and completely ignoring his attitude, Zhuang Zhai's could no longer maintain the smile on his face. I think you're courting death, too. Bailey Hongzhuang raised 2 fingers. She had no patience for such an eyesore. You, won. Bailey Hongzhuang retracted her hand. Her gaze was cold and heartless. It seems that you want to die. From the beginning to the end, Bailey Hongzhuang spoke without the slightest hint of emotion, as if everything in front of her had nothing to do with her. In fact, she didn't even care about it. Who the hell do you think you are? How dare you speak to me in such a tone? Zhuang Zhai's could no longer bear it. This woman who came from who knows where actually ignored his existence from the beginning to the end. She interrupted what he wanted to say again and again. It was intolerable. The cultivators of the Wu Jin dynasty also cursed. Why don't you take a look at yourself? How dare you be so arrogant? You want to annihilate us with just you? It's more like we'll bury you all together. Chapter 1507. Compared to the complacent appearance of the Wujin dynasty cultivators, the Tiangang dynasty cultivators were very calm in the face of their abuse. Only when the opponents were strong enough would they argue. For these guys that they didn't even put in their eyes, they didn't want to say anything. Because, it lowered their status. It seems that the Wujin dynasty cultivators don't know the power of the Tiangang dynasty cultivators. Now they actually dare to be so arrogant. They'll be finished in a while. You can see from the indifferent expressions of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. They don't put the Wujin dynasty cultivators in their eyes at all. Although the Wujin dynasty is a large dynasty, their strength can't be compared to the Qinrun dynasty cultivators. There's no need to think about this ending. Then why haven't Bailey Hongzhuang and the others made a move? This is a bit strange. Just as everyone was guessing why Bailey Hongzhuang didn't make a move, Bailey Hongzhuang was listening to the argument of the 3 beasts. Leave this idiot to me. Xiao Bai's eyes flashed with a cold light. It hadn't seen such a blind guy for a long time. I think he's even more unhappy. At this time, I should be the one to perform. Xiao He was even more eager. It couldn't hide the excitement in its eyes. If it didn't show off this good opportunity, how could it show its power? I'll bite off his neck. Baisher was also eager to try. During this period of time, it had been chased by other beasts in the desert world. It really wanted this opportunity to perform. Seeing that the three beasts didn't come to a conclusion for a long time, Bailey Hongzhuang said, Xiao He go first, then Xiao Bai, then Baisher. Don't fight, don't fight. You all have a chance to perform. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the three beasts were stunned for a moment, then nodded. As long as they had a chance to perform, it was enough. Zhuang Zhai's saw that Bailey Hongzhuang didn't make a move after counting, and the pride in his eyes deepened. In his opinion, Bailey Hongzhuang's previous words were just a bluff. Trying to use such a lowly method to trick them away was simply too laughable. None of them had grown up being scared. As a cultivator from a large empire, wouldn't it be a joke if they were afraid of a cultivator from a medium empire? I said. Just as Zhuang Zhai's was about to mock Bailey Hongzhuang, a white light suddenly flashed in front of him. Bang! A ferocious fist smashed into his face. He only felt a sharp pain in his cheek, and his teeth loosened. Zhuang Zhai's took a step back. Just as he was about to see what the white thing that had attacked him was, another black light flashed and hit him on the other side of his face. Bang! Another dull sound rang out. Just by hearing the sound, everyone could imagine how heavy the punch was on Zhuang Zhai's face. Zhuang Zhai's took another 2 steps back. Under the impact of the 2 punches, he felt dizzy and could not even see the situation in front of him. Tui! Zhuang Zhai spat out a mouthful of bloody foam, which was mixed with a few white teeth. However, Zhuang Zhai's could not feel the pain in his teeth. He only felt a numbness in his cheeks and could not feel anything else. Chapter 1508. In the next moment, Baisher's figure pounced forward. His round and adorable body did not seem to have any offensive power, but when he opened his mouth, he let out a loud roar that stunned all the cultivators present. Baisher opened its mouth wide and mercilessly bit Zhuang Zhai's neck. Roar! Zhuang Zhai's had already lost his mind under the previous 2 attacks. When Baisher attacked him, he did not react. When he felt the severe pain and came back to his senses, it was too late. Baisher chewed the meat in its mouth and slowly returned to Bailey Hongzhuang's side. From the beginning to the end, its attitude was the same as Bailey Hongzhuang's. It did not even look carefully at Zhuang Zhai's. Looking at Baisher, everyone's eyes could not help but fall on Bailey Hongzhuang's body. It was true that the kind of contract beast had the kind of master. They were all cold and arrogant, and they did not put anyone in their eyes. Bang! Zhuang Zhai's body fell heavily to the ground. Blood kept flowing out from the wound on his neck. Zhuang Zhai's looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in a daze. He never thought that he would die in the hands of a contract beast. Moreover, it was so fast that he did not even have time to react before he had fallen into such a situation. He stared at Bailey Hongzhuang and the 3 monsters with his eyes wide open. He could not believe that all this was true. With Zhuang Zhai's fall, the cultivators of Wujin dynasty were also dumbfounded. They looked at this scene in disbelief. Their captain died just like that. Xianyuan Huan and Bailey Haoshuan were also dumbfounded. Zhuang Zhai's was so difficult to deal with in their eyes, but Bailey Hongzhuang did not even make a move. Her contract beast had already dealt with him. This gap was simply unimaginable. Bailey Haoshuan was still lying on the ground in a daze. Just now, He was on the verge of death. In such a short moment, the situation changed. "I'll go, Bailey Hongzhuang is really too fierce. This speed, this efficiency, this method is really amazing. Bailey Hongzhuang is much stronger than before. I feel that the momentum of the entire team has undergone a huge change. Zhuang Zhai's is really courting death. Of all people to find trouble with, he just had to find trouble with the cultivators of the Tiangang dynasty." Everyone sighed and shook their heads. This kind of situation was a self-inflicted disaster. From beginning to end, the cultivators from Big Dipper didn't bother the cultivators from Wujin. It was the cultivators from Wujin who took the initiative. There was nothing they could say about this situation. After all, if some people wanted to die, they couldn't stop them from dying. At this moment, the cultivators from the Martial Jin dynasty no longer cared about the cultivators from the Wind Gambling dynasty. Their gazes fell on Bailey Hongzhuang's group. You guys, originally, they didn't place Bailey Hongzhuang's group in their eyes. It was just a group from a medium-sized empire, and they didn't need to pay attention to it at all. However, they no longer dared to underestimate Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. They had killed Zhuang Zhai's without even making a move. Their powers were clearly not enough. Leave no one alive. Bailey Hongzhuang was too lazy to listen to the words of the cultivators from Wujin dynasty. Just from the behavior of this group of guys before, it could be seen that they were a group of scum. Thinking about it, there should be many teams from small and medium-sized empires that fell in their hands. Chapter 1509. She said, "Leave no one alive." Since she said it, she would naturally do it. With Bailey Hongzhuang's voice falling, Mo Yinjue and the others directly picked up their weapons without saying anything. For this kind of team that did not pose any threat, there was no need to say anything, it was enough to just make a move. The next moment, Mo Yinjue and the others rushed to the cultivators of the Wu Jin dynasty without saying anything. They had not seen such a blind guy for a long time, it was just the right time to teach them a lesson. Of course, this was not the real idea of Xia Jiqing and the others. Their real idea was that they had not seen such a blind guy for a long time. They were worried that they would not have enough points, now they could blatantly snatch it. The cultivators of the Wu Jin dynasty were completely dumbfounded when they saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were so overbearing and directly made a move without saying a word. They had participated in the assessment competition for a long time and had never seen such a rude team. The most important thing was that the other party was just a team from a medium-sized dynasty. The three beasts also jumped down from Bailey Hongzhuang's body. These annoying guys did not need their master to make a move, they could all solve them. If it was before, the cultivators of the Wu Jin dynasty would have greeted them without saying a word. However, after seeing Zhuang Zhai's being dealt with so easily, they did not dare to fight. Wasn't this courting death? Since they could deal with Zhuang Zhai's so easily, it proved that the other party could easily deal with them. What's more, just from the other party's attitude, it could be seen that their strength was not simple. If they fought head-on, they were afraid that they would be the ones to suffer. The cultivators of the Wu Jin dynasty quickly understood this point and immediately fled, no longer paying attention to the cultivators of the Wind Bo dynasty who fell to the ground. Bailey Hongzhuang still stood in the same place and did not make a move. With the current strength of their team, it was definitely not a problem to solve these. Bailey Haoxuan no longer continued to lie on the ground at this moment, but slowly got up. When he saw Bailey Hongzhuang's exquisite face again, his heart was filled with shock and gratitude. There were no other emotions in his heart. Thank you. Bailey Haoxuan hesitated again and again, but still said the word, thank you. Although he didn't know whether Bailey Hongzhuang did it to save him or because Zhuang Zhai's actions were too annoying, no matter what, Bailey Hongzhuang saved him. Thinking of all the things he had done to Bailey Hongzhuang in the past, and how she was still willing to help him, his heart was filled with shame and gratitude. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Bailey Haoxuan indifferently. No need. She didn't have a good impression of the general's residence, but at least she was still alive. Now, she could be considered to have cleared her debt with them. Bailey Hongzhuang's tone was rather cold. Bailey Haoxuan lowered his head. Facing Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude, he did not know what to say. He knew very well that Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude was normal. If it were him, he would not care at all and would rather die early. Xianyuan Huan and the others also stood up and quickly took the elixir. Their hearts were filled with the feeling of surviving a disaster. Chapter 15:10. Xianyuan Huan slowly walked in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. Thinking of everything that Zhuang Zhai's said before, his heart was filled with shame. Miss Bailey, thank you for saving my life. Xianyuan Huan's face showed sincere gratitude. He was really grateful to Bailey Hongzhuang. If it wasn't for Bailey Hongzhuang's appearance, he would have been tortured to death by now. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Xianyuan Huan indifferently and nodded slightly, it's nothing. Now she no longer had any opinions about Xianyuan Huan. If what Xianyuan Huan did to Bailey Hongzhuang before was too much, then she had already returned all of it to Xianyuan Huan. Xianyuan Huan had already paid a certain price for not being able to marry 3 fiancés in a row. In contrast, seeing Xianyuan Huan again now, he revealed a sense of repentance everywhere. Just like how he had apologized to Di Beichen and begged for mercy for his parents, from that moment on, he had grown into a real man. Therefore, she didn't feel anything now. She just took it as getting rid of a group of annoying guys and saving a small dynasty's team. After the onlookers saw the cultivators of the Tiangang dynasty being so domineering as soon as they made a move, a deep shock appeared on their faces. I haven't seen them for a while, but the way the Tiangang dynasty's cultivators do things is becoming more and more different. When the cultivators' strength increases, their arrogance will naturally become more arrogant. This is how it should be. I feel that the Windbo dynasty's cultivators seem to know Bailey Hongzhuang. Listening to their tone, I feel that there's a story behind it. A cultivator's face showed curiosity. Just by looking at the way Xianyuan Huan looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, she felt that there was something wrong. One of them is a medium-sized dynasty's team, the other is a small dynasty's team. How can they know each other? Don't guess blindly. At this time, a cultivator said, Tiangang dynasty is actually not a medium-sized dynasty, but a small dynasty. As soon as these words came out, the cultivators present were stunned. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. I'm telling the truth. The Tiangang dynasty's team only had 5 people at the beginning. The other 3 people joined their team later on. Yes, I know this too. That man and woman are cultivators from the Snow Origin dynasty. There was no lack of cultivators present who knew the truth. Therefore, at this moment, when this point was discussed, everyone began to talk about what they knew. The other cultivators were completely dumbfounded when they found out that the Tiangang dynasty was actually a small dynasty. It was too shocking for a small dynasty team to be able to achieve such results in the assessment competition. Oh my God, how long has it been since a small dynasty's? This is too shocking. So, it's not strange that Bailey Hongzhuang knows cultivators from the Windbo dynasty. At this moment, everyone's as. If the small dynasties were not far from each other, it was very normal for them to communicate. The other cultivators of the Windbo dynasty also knew the relationship between Bailey Hongzhuang, Xianyuan Huan, and Hongzhuang. The name of miracle Dr. Hongzhuang was extremely famous in the imperial city. Chapter 1511. Not long after, Mo Yunjue and the others returned in a carefree manner with a Qianquan pouch in their hands. Seeing this scene, everyone already knew the result. The arrogance of the Tian Gang dynasty's cultivators was justified because their strength was strong enough. No matter who was looking for trouble, they didn't mind fighting them head-on. Mo Yunjue noticed the atmosphere between Beili Hongzhuang and the Wind Bo dynasty, and he couldn't help but frown. He also knew about Beili Hongzhuang's previous experience in the Wind Bo dynasty. In fact, he was very familiar with Beili Hongzhuang's experience over the years. For the guy who hurt Beili Hongzhuang so much, he could only say that this guy was really too blind. He didn't want a good treasure, but chose to pick up a stone. Now he was afraid that he would want to commit suicide. After Beili Hongzhuang saw Xia Jiqing and the others come back, there was a faint smile on her face and she said, "Let's go." Listening to Beili Hongzhuang's words, Xia Jiqing and the others nodded and immediately followed Beili Hongzhuang into the depths of the city. From beginning to end, Xia Jiqing and the others didn't say hello to Xianyuan Huan and the others. In fact, Xianyuan Huan was a hateful and pitiful person in their eyes. When Xianyuan Huan and the others saw the cultivators of the Tian Gang dynasty leave like this, their expressions were very complicated, but they quickly returned to their houses. Now they had suffered heavy injuries, and there were cultivators everywhere. If any of the dynasty's cultivators wanted to make a move on them, they wouldn't be as lucky as now. However, Xianyuan Huan and the others didn't know. After the other cultivators felt that they were involved with the cultivators of the Tian Gang dynasty, they didn't intend to make a move on them. If they offended the cultivators of the Tian Gang dynasty for a small dynasty's team, they would really be looking for trouble. Yuan Xiaoman walked beside Xia Jiqing, and it was difficult to hide the curiosity in her eyes. "Jiqing, what is the relationship between Boss and the Wind Bo dynasty?" Everyone knew what was going on, but she didn't know the feeling was really bad. Moreover, women had always been very curious. Looking at Yuan Xiaoman's curious look, Xia Jiqing thought for a moment and winked at Yuan Xiaoman, indicating that she would tell her later. Since they were teammates, they would find out sooner or later. She believed that Boss wouldn't mind. Seeing this, Yuan Xiaoman nodded slightly and immediately understood. Soon, Beili Hongzhuang and the others found a place to stay. Everyone entered the house, and Yuan Xiaoman ran into Xia Jiqing's house, waiting for Xia Jiqing to tell her the whole story. Xia Jiqing did not hide it and immediately told him about the things between Beili Hongzhuang, Xianyuan Huan and Beili Haoshuan. After knowing all this, Yuan Xiaoman was completely dumbfounded. "Jiqing, do you mean that Beili Haoshuan is Boss's younger brother?" Xia Jiqing nodded slightly. "But Beili Haoshuan has always been bad to eldest brother. The relationship between them is extremely bad. My God, Xianyuan Huan turned out to be Boss's fiancé, and he even broke off the engagement. This is too incredible. Does Xianyuan Huan not have eyes? Anyone who has such a beautiful fiancé like Boss would not be willing to break off the engagement, right? What kind of nerve did Xianyuan Huan have to make such a decision?" You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.